Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. All right. Well, today's guest is Jess Ekstrom, and I'm personally thrilled to have you, Jess. But as I told you before, I always like to have the guest introduce themselves to say what they want to say about themselves. So here's Jess.
And literally right as we get started, do you hear my dog? I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Hold on.
Start over.
Oh, please. This is the life that we're living in, is the world of Zoom. I even shut the window and all the doors, but right when you hit record, I watched the mailman come up and I was like, dang it, this is like right on cue. But anyway, so I have a dog, and my name is Jess Ekstrom. And I started, my story starts when I was in college. I was interning for Make-A-Wish, seeing a lot of kids lose their hair to chemotherapy, and they wanted to wear headbands after hair loss. And so many of them would be offered a wig or they'd be given a hat. And a lot of them weren't really concerned with covering up their heads. They just wanted something to feel good about themselves after losing their hair. And so I call it like the dumbest, smartest moment of my life, where I was like, oh, I could do that. I could start a company that gives headbands to kids with illnesses. So I started a company called Headbands of Hope. I'm so sorry. My dog is really going crazy.
Okay, if you want to, it's up to you.
Okay. The mailman just left and I think that we should be good, but let me just close this door real quick. Hold on.
Perfect.
Okay. Dog is behind double closed doors, but I call it the dumbest, smartest moment of my life, because I was 19 and I was like, hey, I could start a business, and provide headbands to kids with illnesses, not having any clue how to do it. I was just like, let's give it a shot. So I started Headbands of Hope, and it was not fire right out of the gate by any means, but I just was consistent with it. And I just knew that this company, for every headband sold, we're going to donate one. I knew that the problem that I was solving was out there. And so I just kept at it. And to date, we've donated over 1 million headbands to kids with illnesses. Yay. But through doing that, thank you, I started sharing my story about how I saw a problem and I thought that maybe I could be the one to create a solution, and this kind of unsinkable optimism that I had. And I started sharing it, in classrooms and, writing little blogs here and there. And I realized that sharing my story of how I was able to see a problem and create a solution was actually an incredible product and mission of itself, of just using my story to help people in their story. So it started off just speaking, for free here and there. And then I remember getting my first paid speaking gig and I was like, holy cow, people actually pay you to do this, which is, Karen, I'm sure you had like a similar thing. You're like, you want to pay me what to just come up there and tell you what I did today? So I realized this whole world of speaking. And so then all of a sudden I just went all in on my speaking career, was speaking, 50 plus times a year. And then seeing that there's just not a lot of women out there on these speaking panels, especially when you get into like business and tech and science conferences, women are just not being seen and valued equally as thought leaders. Mm-hmm. And so that's what led to Mic Drop Workshop, which is how I met you, my online course and community to help women become paid keynote speakers. And then throughout that, I published Chasing the Bright Side with HarperCollins, which is my book, and also have Book Pop Workshop to help women on their publishing careers as well. So now my life looks a lot like just helping women become thought leaders. And it's so cool to be able to talk to you, since you've been a shining star in Mic Drop Workshop.
Oh, thank you. Well, one of the things that stands out is Unsinkable Optimism. And your book is fantastic, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
You ooze authenticity along with incredible expertise. And that's one of the things that really stands out to me about you. You're so freaking relatable.
Thank you. Well, it was funny when you told me the first time you saw me. Do you want to share that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. So, so I joined Mic Drop Workshop, for those of you that are wondering, back in 2019, when I put my stake in the ground to say, I'm going to be a speaker. And I had done it for years through another company, but I said, I'm going to do it on my own and it changed the world in my own way. And so I saw Jess's ad, and she was wearing, yeah, you were walking through, you said the Nashville airport.
Yeah.
Earbuds in, you
I
looked
think
like
a
you'd been
hoodie, like
traveling,
no
right?
makeup. Yeah, exactly.
Let's just say it in the nicest possible.
Probably had Chipotle stains on my shirt,
And I'm thinking, who is this person? At first, kind of some judgment around, how you were, what you were, you get presents, why not presents, but what you were wearing. I feel so dumb.
Right.
But
No, go for it. Yeah.
but what's important about it to me is that I had to put my own self in check there, because immediately I liked you. It was, and
Yeah.
and she's got some things to say that might be helpful for me.
Yeah.
So I think it's such a good example of, you just never know, first of all, where you're going to meet somebody, what's going to impact your life. And for those of you listening that are running a business or thinking about starting or wanting to get started, that is such an important thing to keep in mind, to keep showing up in all of your life and ways. So I want to hear from you, Jess, what you have thoughts on related to that.
Well, it was so interesting when I heard you say that, and I loved your honesty around it. And one of the reasons I feel like why I just try to show up as I am is because the perception of being a speaker and being an author or being an entrepreneur is like so unattainably polished and crisp, when people are tired of that. They don't want someone up there who pretends that they have it all together. I think that the most powerful speakers out there are the ones who people in the audience can kind of make a bridge between where they're sitting to where that speaker is standing. And so for me, when I, flip on my camera or I'm talking about Mic Drop, or, similar to the ad that you saw, I'm not going to be in this white, crisp studio with a professional camera crew, because that's just not reality. And you also don't need that in order to be a speaker. And so I feel like a part of my kind of mission now is to empower people to be thought leaders just as they are. You don't really need to be like, have a statue named after you or, all these things. Really, it's just, what are you 10% ahead on? What are you 10% more than what the rest of the population is that you can speak on? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're this expert with this, mountains of research. Just be 10% ahead, and you can still be yourself, along the way.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, speaking of being yourself, again, being how so authentic as you are, can you share with us a time that, because we all look up to you, and of course, you're also so real, that I want to hear a time when you didn't speak up, but wish that you had.
Oh, that's a really good question. So before I started Mic Drop, you would get booked, I would get booked to speak at these events, and I would look at the lineup before I go, and then I would see that there wasn't any women besides me. And I just remember being really annoyed, being really disappointed, but I just felt like, oh, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I should just be grateful that that they're like bringing me, which is, selfish, but like, I wish, and now, I actually, like, if I am getting booked to speak at an event, I ask who the other speakers are. I ensure that it's an equal lineup. And if it's not, I gently, have a way to tell them that I won't speak there, or that I have suggestions for who that they should bring. And so I think that the times that I didn't speak up, led me to what I'm doing today with Mic Drop, and just a real, kick in the booty to not just empower women, but hopefully push events to have diversity in their lineups, not just with women, but with, skin types, sexual orientations. Like we just need to hear from a bunch of different people. So I'm a
Yeah.
lot more vocal about that now, but I was not in the past.
I love it. Well, and aren't we all on that journey?
Yeah, for
That's what
sure.
we
For
can all
sure.
learn from each other. Well, as a matter of fact, when I did my I like to call it my coming out party in the online space when I quit my corporate job in July 2020 was to do an online summit like everybody else was doing. And at the time, I remember being very committed. I shouldn't say at the time, but one of my main goals was to have 50% women of color. And I interviewed 21 women, and 9 of them were women of color. So I was really proud of that. And it reminded me too, and also for anybody listening, we have to be intentional about these things,
Mhm.
just like you're talking about. And it was alarming to me how many people, when I reached out, were actually white. And I thought, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this isn't easy. It really takes focus and intention to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I was talking to my friend about this, who's an amazing woman of color speaker. And I was like, what do events, need to do in order to change the lineup? And she's like, it starts with the selection committees, and the people that who are actually, because if someone, if I was to start a conference, I'm going to look in my small circle of who do I know? But who can we tap that they have, maybe they are from a different area, they went to a different school, whatever it might be. The people who are making the decisions, if that room isn't diverse, then the event itself isn't going to be diverse.
Yeah, it's so true. Oh my gosh. Well, let's shift for a second. I would love to hear from you again. I love how much, so much that I feel like I know you because you've been so vulnerable and honest about things. Would you be willing to share a mistake that you made and how you recovered from that?
Oh my gosh, Karen, where do I begin? Honestly, let me think about so there's a real biggie that I talk about in Chasing the Bright Side. When I was just getting started with Headbands of Hope, I got a loan from my dad for my first round of production, wired it to a fraudulent manufacturer who ran with that money.
Oh,
And so that was like my first real, kick with failure. And it really set the tone, I think, I'm not going to lie. It sucked, but
yeah.
it really set the tone for, I think, my resilience. And it's like, okay, if I can get through that, then I can get through really anything that throws my way. And that's where optimism comes into play. Is just like, if you believe the thing that you're doing is solving a problem, then the problems that you encounter won't be big enough to derail it. And so I think that I've made so many mistakes along the way. Like, I'm trying to think of recent ones. I mean, even from just like right now I'm building Prompted, which is a guided online journal. And the things that we're doing we're building out like a technological platform, which I've never done
Wow.
that before. I'm like, how do I use a, Google Doc? I don't know how to build an app. And so every day I feel like I'm messing up with that. But I think that the thing that's so exciting to me about it is that it's all a normal part of the process when you're building an app. It's like the first time we had a glitch or, whatever, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. What are we going to do? And all the developers are like, this is how it happens. You build something, you launch it, you figure out what's wrong, and then you keep making it better. That's literally the process of building an app. And that's it's tough to wrap your head around the parts that like, oh yeah, the failures are a normal part of the process. So I would say right now, the building Prompted, it's actually been like a really healthy relationship with failure, knowing that it's normal. I'm like, how can I apply this same mindset set in Prompted to all these other areas of my life? Whether it's, the book that I'm writing and getting, bad feedback from an editor or like whatever it might be, how can it just be a normal part of the process?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so good. It's so true. If we can start leaning into failure, it's so much easier. And I love the level setting of the people. It just said, this is how you do it. And I think that's such a good reminder for all of us to keep that in mind. Well,
what about you?
Oh my gosh, boy, what? I didn't expect the tides to be turned on me, Jess.
This is a two-way street, Karen.
Well, I think my biggest mistake was less of a specific event. It was more about all of the times I'm thinking about when I didn't speak up and wish that I had, because for too long, and my story is that my dad was pretty controlling as a kid. And so he pretty much called the shots in our family. And what I learned from being a little girl was that I didn't have a voice, or I had to look for authority, someone in authority, usually a man, to tell me what to do. And it's ironic because I actually was very outspoken related to things that I knew that would add value to people. So I from a very young age, I spoke out and all of that in a lot of ways. But when it came to me personally, I would still hold back. So to me, the biggest mistake is really not speaking up. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping women speak up and recognize that their voice matters.
And I apologize if you shared this on your podcast before, but selfishly, what was the moment where you decided, like, I'm going to become a speaker? This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, well, there's one specific moment that relates to the finding my voice part and realizing it's time for me to do my own thing. So I've always enjoyed speaking ever since I was in high school, just to give you a little flavor about my past. And then I was a corporate trainer for many years. I've been flown all over the world for Google, Netflix, lots of big companies. So I had a lot of privilege in my corporate job. But the hardest part for me was being on the senior leadership team and still holding back because I was intimidated by certain people in certain situations. And there was a moment when my boss had said, let's do a thing. And without getting into details, I remember thinking that's sort of a weird thing to do. I didn't really align with the purpose. And I'm sitting in the boardroom, ready to lead this meeting. And the whole team is looking at me like, okay, like they're ready. And they're all very supportive. But I completely got paralyzed and thought, like, I couldn't do it because I just didn't agree with it. And my boss had to save me. She was very nice, but she pulled me aside right after the meeting and she goes, this is a really good example, once again, of you not trusting your gut. And you could have just said, I don't even know why we're doing this. Let's table it, talk about it later. But I didn't even think that was possible because to me it was, oh, my boss told me to do this.
They told me to do this. Yeah,
exactly. And so that was a very strong moment where I realized, no, I can't, this has got to stop. And I had been on a trajectory around personal growth for a long time around my voice and getting my needs met and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that was when I realized, okay, this is just done. And then the big moment was September 2019, after seeing your ad on the Nashville.
I love it. Oh my God, that's going to make me cry. That's awesome.
Well, it's really true. I remember thinking, how the urgency thing, you had like, it ends at midnight, whatever the thing was. And I remember, ironically, this is really funny. I was in a Nashville airport.
Oh, no way. That's crazy.
And it was almost midnight. And I got to my hotel and I thought, oh, I don't want to do this. Do I want to not? And at that time, whatever it is, almost $1,000 felt like this huge amount of money. Yeah. Is this really going to pay off? What, all those things. And then I remember 11:59, I bought it. And that's when I put that stake in the ground. And now I have a whole formula for the 3 Ds called decide, declare, and deliver. So I made a decision. And then the declaring was telling everybody I know, and that's what's helped me build my speaking career as well, is just the power of focus. And then doing it, taking action. So I didn't want to make it about me, Jess, but it definitely connects to you. And I think there's a real power in making that decision for what it is that you want to do.
So. Yeah. And I think that one of the things that gets overlooked the most that you said is declaring it to other people. So often, right now it's January, we probably have all these goals and New Year's resolutions, and maybe we keep them to ourselves. But being able to tell people, like, I'm a professional speaker, or putting it in your bio or on your LinkedIn or on your business card, in your email signature, that alone is like so much power behind that. Not just because of the frequency that you're putting out there. You never know who's going to stumble upon your LinkedIn or get your email and say, oh, Karen's a speaker. We have that leadership conference coming up in a month. Let's bring her, one, the frequency, but two, the declaration to yourself. Once you say, like, yeah, I'm writing a book, I'm an author, or I'm a speaker, there's just this switch that turns on in you that you start to step into those shoes. You put on that blazer, you realize that, like, yeah, this is who I am. And we have permission to do that whenever we want. I think the older I get, the more I feel like I have to choose the way that I am or who I am or what I do. And it's like, no, at any point I could be like, I'm a lion tamer and I'm going to go do that. I'm not going to do that. But it's important to remind ourselves that we can reinvent ourselves and we can declare it.
Yes.
So I love that part of your story.
Well, thank you. And I can remember being laid off many years ago, and I was I was pretty surprised. I was the HR manager and drove to swim laps at the Embarcadero YMCA here in San Francisco. And I had this moment when I was swimming, I could do anything. And then I started laughing at myself going, Karen, you can do anything, anytime you want. It's sometimes that forced choice that makes us change things. And yet we can make that decision for ourselves at any time.
Yeah.
And that really did make a huge difference for me. And in fact, one of my previous clients as a coach called me and said, hey, what are you up to now? And I said, well, my focus is on speaking. And she said, oh my gosh, we have an event. You would be my first choice. And it's to the exact point that you're talking about. And I feel like focus has made all the difference. And I'd love to ask you, I'm thinking about focus, thinking about declaring, what for you in your life has made the biggest difference related to something that you declared and moved forward in?
So actually, when my husband and I got the idea a couple of years ago, when Chasing the Bright Side was going to come out, we were like, oh, it'd be so funny if we, went into an Airstream for a book tour, and like, how fun would that be? And then, we woke up the next day and we were like, actually, that would be really cool. And so what we did was we like pretend declared it. We were like, let's just tell ourselves for 3 weeks that, hey, we're moving into an Airstream. What would our life look like? What would we need to get done? Okay, we need to rent out our place. We need to do these things. And so we're like, let's just try on this declaration for 3 weeks and see what happens. And if at the end of those 3 weeks, we're like, this isn't working, whatever, we're no harm, no foul, or it works. And so we declared to ourselves, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to live in an Airstream. And it worked. And then 3 years later, we were still in that same Airstream, which was a lot longer than we thought it was going to be. But I think that that's the other thing too, that can be interesting sometimes, is to like try it on. I tell people who are tinkering with being an author or being a speaker, it's like, well, what would happen if for the next month you said that you're writing this book and you woke up every day as if you were the author of this book? What would you do? Would you write 500 words before you open your email? Would you maybe scroll for literary agents, in the evenings? Like, what if you just tried it on and then you have permission to take it off whenever you want? But I think that just giving yourself permission to try on these different, like, play dress up, even when you're older, is really important, because nothing is that permanent and nothing is that serious. And just keep being fluid and dynamic, and something will stick.
Yeah, that's so good. And it reminds me of the power of the act as if, and because I was reading actually in my journal yesterday about declaring May 2023, what my life would be like. And as if it's already happened. And I'm a big believer in that, of putting that date, either whether.
Oh, cool. I like that method.
Yeah. So whether, I mean, I know you're a big journaler and you encourage us to do that as well. I feel like that's huge. Of course, vision boards, but I do think that people often miss the, as if it's happening now. We're really good at projecting goals. Well, when this happens, as opposed to this is happening now. And it's so exhilarating. I was reading this whole vision that I had, and I thought, oh, dang, that's pretty good. I'm excited to live that out.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, and with speaking, sometimes I tell people to write your testimonial. Like, imagine that you're someone in the audience and they just heard you speak. What would you want them to say about you? And then that in itself is like helpful to understand who do you want to be as a speaker? What's your style? What's the impact that you want to have? Write your own testimonial.
That's yes, beautiful. Well, I was thinking about one other thing, and then I'll wrap up. But I was going through, I'm cleaning out in my papers in my house, and I'm guessing for a lot of people listening, you have lots of papers stacked up in your house too. And I always find these little things from notes that I've taken when I've gone to seminars and stuff. And one of them was something like, who do you want to be to your audience? And I just love that question. It reminds me, just when you said that, it made me think about that. I've been pondering that a lot, of who do I want to be? Thinking about in the online space, what do I want to be known for? And I want to encourage anyone listening to think about that from a personal brand perspective, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in the corporate world. We all create an experience for people. The question is it fun or not? Are we projecting the thing that we actually want to project onto the world? And the best way to do that, of course, is to ask other people, but also to just continue on the path and just live your best life, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Who do you want to be to your audience? And I think that that's like a great question too, because it also pushes you to pick a lane, because you can't be everything to everyone. So what is like the one thing that you want to be to your audience, and the one mark that you want to leave?
Well, and I think about some of the people in Mic Drop and in the Facebook group. And for those of you listening, I would highly recommend that you join Mic Drop or Book Pop. Is that?
Yes. Yeah. Mic Drop and Book Pop.
Yes. And because the community is just amazing. And the big question that a lot of us have, or not really question, but it's the thing that we're all contending with, and I'd say this is the same with any business person, is we have so many things that we do. How do we pick the one thing that's really our area of focus, so that we don't get diluted in our message to our listeners? And then people they're confused. So they don't even buy whatever we're selling, because they don't know what to do or what we actually do. But what I want to transition here, Jess, I really appreciate the time that you've taken to spend with me. I'm curious, when we think about those women that are listening who lack confidence, what advice would you give them?
I would say, it's actually, the other day I said to my friend, because I was looking at like, I had a middle school photo or something popped up, and I was, acne braces, all of it. And I just remembered, like, I said to my friend, I was like, I wish I could tell my middle school self that like, no one knows what they're doing and everyone's just as insecure as you are. And when I said that to her, I was like, oh, shoot, that's exactly what's happening now. Forget middle school. No one knows what they're doing. Everyone's just as insecure as you are. So that might sound a little like, are you sure you're the optimist girl? But I think that that's really comforting to realize that, like, oh my gosh, no one has it figured out. Everyone's still questioning themselves. And also no one's thinking about your mistakes as much as you are. So like, hit publish, go live, apply for the gig. It's all going to be fine, And so I think that that's, if someone's having analysis paralysis, to remind yourself that you're not in a fishbowl like you might feel. That for me, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought of one other thing, if you'll indulge me for
a
moment. What's the most unexpected thing that's happened to you in your career?
Ooh, What's the most unexpected thing that's happened to me? I would say right now, this isn't out there and it's still very early, but I'm in talks with a production crew for a potential reality show, but we will see. It is very early. But one of the things that I think is so fascinating about it is like, if I had, this was not on my vision board, this was not on like, oh, must get reality show,
Right.
So whether it happens or not, to have evidence that there are so many winning scenarios out there for us that we don't even know exist is really cool. So we can have like our speaking goals. We want to get a book deal. We want all these things. That's great. Have those goals, but also have comfort in knowing that the more that we engage with the world, the more amazing things are going to happen that we don't even know what they are. And so just to remain open to possibilities, have goals, but don't be tunnel vision about them. Because I would have never thought that I would be having some of the conversations that I've been having.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a great segue to where I wanted to close out is what's next for you and how can we support you?
Yes. So I'll keep you posted about that. But
Okay.
the next thing is releasing Prompted, so my guided online journal. And so my hope is that this journal is going to help people become thought leaders, tell their story. How it works is you have your own private journal, and then you can explore our library of prompt pathways. So these pathways are journaling tracks that help you towards a specific goal or interest that you have. So for example, if Marie Forleo has a prompt pathway on there about, everything is figure outable. You can take her prompt pathway, or we have a pathway from Mark Randolph, the co-founder of Netflix, about making your ideas work. So whatever it is that you need, you can log on and take a prompt pathway and journal through it. So I'm really excited about that. And that's kind of what's been on my mind right now.
That's exciting. Well, that's great. Well, where can we find you? I'll have all the links in there, but where's your ideal place for people?
Yes. Well, you can go to micdropworkshop.com if you're interested in learning more about that. And then you can find me on Instagram at Jess_Ekstrom. And that's where I'll be. Oh, and then you can also sign up. I always forget to say this, for my Monday hype text. I send out a text every Monday with just some words of
I love those,
encouragement. Oh, good.
Yes.
So you can text me the word hype to 704-228-9495.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jess. You're always an inspiration. I appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, Karen. I'm so excited to have you in Mic Drop. And like I said, you have been just like a ray of sunshine in that group. So thank you for being you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.